In today's video, I'm going to be talking about solving addition equations, but before I get to that, I just want to talk about solving equations in general. I'm going to start with a very simple equation. We'll say 4 equals 4. Now I have this little picture here below it because I want you to think of an equation as a pan balance or something being in balance. Okay, so right now a 4 is equal to a 4. These things are in balance. If I were to take away something from this side, this would now become heavier because this is lighter, and so the equation would no longer be in balance. This side, the 4 would be heavier, and the 4 minus 1 would be lighter, and so this would be out of balance and therefore not equal. So our goal when we're solving equations is always to keep the left side and the right side in balance. So now we're in balance. So we're going to be using properties of equality to keep all of our equations in balance at all times. So the left side and the right side have to be equal. Okay. When you're doing that, you have to do the same thing to both sides every time. So right here we have an x plus 7 equals 15. And when we're solving equations, our goal is to isolate the variable. Okay, we need to isolate the variable. And what that means is locate the variable, in this case x, and we want to get it all alone on one side of the equation. So right now it's next to it's being added to 7, or 7 is being added to it. And so we want it all alone, so we got to get rid of the 7. Well, the inverse of addition is subtraction. So if we can subtract 7 from this side, then that 7 would go away. And so we want to get rid of this 7, so we're going to subtract 7. Now, because of our pan balance, we can't just subtract something from one side. We have to do it to both sides. Oops, what's happening here? So I have to subtract 7 from this side. So now we're looking at just single sides right now. So on this left side only, the x plus 7 minus 7 is now an x. And on the right side, we have 15 minus 7 is 8. So now we know that x is equal to 8. And from last night's video, you know that that's probably something you could have done in your head. So 8 plus 7 is 15. So that's the correct answer. Using that same strategy here, we have d plus 4 equals 12. Now in your head, you probably know that d is going to be 8. That's fine. But what I want you to do is show your work here and isolate the variable using properties of equality. So the goal here is we need to isolate d. In order to do that, we need to get rid of this plus 4, or addition of 4. Now you get rid of an addition of 4 by subtracting 4. But remember, we don't want this to be out of balance. We need both sides to always be equal. So if we subtract 4 from the left side, we also have to subtract 4 from the right side. So now on the left side, we'll get these 4's cancel out. 4 minus 4 would be 0, so we end up with d. And on the right side, we get what we knew the answer would be, 12 minus 4, which is 8. Okay. And then, so if we look down at this one, we know in our heads that g is going to have to be 6, but we need to prove it using properties of equality. So we need to isolate this g, and 7 is being added to it. Remember, because 7 plus g equals 13 could also be written as g plus 7 equals 13. Okay, if that helps. Now we need to get rid of this addition by 7. So the inverse of adding 7 would be subtracting 7. Again, if we do something to this left side, we need to do it to the right side to keep everything in balance. And so that leaves us with g all alone on left side, and 13 minus 7, which is 6, which we thought was correct, on the right side. So some of you might be asking right now, like, what is the point of showing this work when we already know what the answer is going to be in our heads. Well, this is just the building block. This is just the very beginning of learning how to solve equations. And so some of them might seem easy at first, but it's important to learn the building blocks for when we get to solve something that looks like this, where it's not obvious what the value of x is. So this looks really complicated and hard, but we will eventually be able to solve these, whether it's in 7th grade or 8th grade, probably 7th grade here. So in order to be able to solve something like this, we need to learn the building blocks, we need to learn the basic rules, and so that's why I'm having you show your work. It is necessary, and I am going to force you to do it for now. Once you get enough practice with this, I'll allow you to go from the first step here just right to the end, but for now I will have you showing your work in the middle. Here it's a similar problem, same as before. I've put some decimals in here so we can practice some of that for those of you who missed some of those decimal questions on the test. So here we have m plus 2.7. Again, we're trying to isolate this variable here, so we need to get rid of this addition of 2.7. So we're going to subtract 2.7. As usual, we're trying to keep this in balance, so we want to subtract 2.7 from the right side as well. So on the left side, this positive 2.7 minus 2.7 cancels out, leaving just the m. And on the right side, I'm going to move my calculation over here. We have 35 minus 2.7. Well, we need to line up the decimals. There is no decimal on this 35, so we need to reveal it. It's always at the end there. So I'm going to put a 0.0. And here's this minus 2.7. Do some subtraction. We're going to borrow. We get a 3. Bring that decimal point right down to the answer. Make sure everything lines up nicely. So our answer should be 32.3. So m equals 32.3. Alright, let's go on to this next question here. Q plus 0.23 equals 15.67. This might not be an intuitive answer, so we need to use the property of equality here by saying that if we subtract 0.23 from both sides, our equation will still be in balance, and also it will leave us this q all by itself. So 0.23 minus 0.23 is 0, so leaving just the q on this side. And on the right side we have 15.67 subtracted by 0.23. Notice subtraction decimals. I'm lining up these decimals. So we got a 4, a 4, a 5, and a 1. I'm bringing that decimal right down into the answer. And so we have 15.44 is the answer. And that will do it for the video. Thank you.